If you're a mountain biker and you're interested in strength training, this might just be the best video you could watch. Today, we're going to talk through 3 key lifts and allow you to compare your results against at least 350 average riders. But then at the end of the video, we're going to put the pros on these graphs so you can see exactly how much stronger they are than the average rider and maybe even you. The purpose of this video is to help you understand more about strength training and fitness training in general, but specifically today about testing. Now, I understand that you're watching this video for educational purposes, but if you want to skip all of that, visit fitforracing.com, where we have bike-specific programs to do holistic training so that then you can spend less time in the gym, more time on the bike. But for now, let's talk about these tests and how you should perform them, and then at the end, compare against average Joe and the pro. Before we delve into the actual metrics so that you can compare, there's a few things that we need to go over first, and questions that you might have, like, should you even test? And the simple answer is that if you're going to do any training for improvement, you should really consider testing. Because if you don't have a benchmark, you can't see that you've made improvement. But for strength training specifically, it's really important because we know that strength isn't the only element of fitness or physiology that contribute to your bike athleticism. So by strength testing your absolute maximums, you can then work out percentages to optimally train strength increases, but also speed and power, which demand higher velocity but at lesser loads. And if you get those percentages wrong, you're not going to be training in those optimal zones to get what you ultimately want to achieve. That's loads of fucking words. The second question we're going to address is, why should I even strength train? Yes, you're a mountain biker, but you might not realize that strength is actually a key part to your athleticism and performance on the bike. You might not have any interest whatsoever in strength training, but you might have interest enough to perform it to then reap the benefits on the bike. There's a couple of demographics that this really helps, and that's those that can't get on the bike through the week. They are restricted in a gym, and by training, they improve their rides at weekends. The other demographic being pro riders, they're after marginal gains where strength training can help. But ultimately, strength is a foundational physiological attribute that, if you get that right, you can build upon with strength, power, and endurance. It will really help your overall performance. And if none of that floats your boat, ultimately, having a little bit more muscle mass will help you become more crash resistant. Tree! Get out! And we know that people crash on bikes. Why not stand up, walk away, and have time off the bike simply by strength training? The third and probably the most important is safety. Don't bore off yet.
The most important thing about gun safety is always keeping your gun on safety. Son of a bitch, Clyde!
Let's just talk about that and why. So if you're not confident with these lifts, there's no point in going out and doing 3 rep maxes on these at all, because you may well hurt yourself, and that means time off the bike. So seek one-on-one help from a professional coach to guide you through the techniques of these lifts so that you can perform them well. But ultimately, if you perform them badly, that's not so good for the performance that we want either. So it's not just a matter of safety, but actually how these lifts affect you physically and the muscles that they fire up and improve on. And if you don't do them well, you're not going to get that response. That's why we do 3 rep maxes as well, because the load is a little less. We can work out the percentages the same, but you can get to 1 or 2 without having to go to absolute failure and your technique breaks down simply just to rack the bar back on, because you're going to get crushed by it. And that leads us to our final safety tip. If you can have a partner, or if you're squatting on your own, do it in a rack and make sure that your partner can spot you and take the load off if you do happen to fail. Our fourth and final point before we look at the data is how to actually perform these tests. And besides the technical execution of these lifts, there's a few things that you need to know before you get into the gym and start loading up. One of those is that I suggest you perform these tests on separate days so that you recover in between and you get the best and absolute max that you can fresh. However, we know that time is precious, so if you do these in one session, then start with the squat, rest, then do the press, and then do the deadlift. And ultimately, if you record and repeat the same way when you retest, then it should be a good, accurate reflection of your absolute strength, regardless of whether you do separate days or on the same day. So if you tested the deadlift third after doing the squat and press on the same day, but next time you tested fresh, you may well get more weight. So make sure that you perform the test the same every single time. So now you have all the information you need to get out and perform the 3 tests, which are back squat, press, and deadlift for 3 rep max. So that means as much weight as you can for 3 reps, technical max. So stay safe. And once you've done that, join us over in the office where we look at the data and you can compare against everyone else, including the pros. Right, so the thing that you've been waiting for, the data. Let's take a look at where you sit against the 350 or so inputs that we've had on the website, and then we'll show you the pros as well. So here, as you can see, a bell curve. On the left-hand side axis is the number of riders that we have data for, and along the bottom, the kilograms. So the kilograms are separated into 10 kilo segments. So if you squat anywhere between 80 and 89.9, you'll go into the 80 kilo column there. So as you can see that the average is round about 70 to 110. That's where the majority of riders sit, which actually might surprise you. It is quite broad still. There are some outliers on either side. So 5 people have only squatted 20 kilos as a reflection of people that are starting the Fit for Racing program and general mountain bikers. And then some people up over 200 kilos who are clearly specialists in strength, probably from other sports and hobbies outside of mountain biking. But ultimately the bell curve is there. You can set yourself against that and see where you are against average riders. But the pros, so this is the important thing now, is to see how much different the pros are to the average rider. From the data we have from the pro riders, the enduro riders are averaging about 135 kilos on their 3 rep max squat. And the downhillers, not far ahead at 140. And as you can see on the graph, they sit at the high end, which isn't unexpected, but it might not be quite as much as you'd expect. Bear in mind that this is an absolute strength test on numbers, and most of these athletes are light body weight in general terms. So it is a power to weight ratio that's important on the bike, but as an idea, that's where they sit on the squat. And let's take a look now then at the press, which is a good reflection on upper body strength. For the general rider, it looks like 35 to 50 kilos is an average. And again, the outliers either side from 10 kilos and 80. 80 for a 3 rep max strict press is pretty heavy, so we can probably exclude these specialists on the top end. And then also on the bottom end, people that are new into strength, or maybe even have some injuries that restrict them on that movement. But generally, you can see that bell curve is similar, and with that average in the middle, you can take a look at how you sit with that. And the pros No surprises, enduros at 55, downhill at 60. These guys are strong against the average rider, but are they that much stronger that it's not unachievable? And that's hopefully what you can see from this, is these numbers aren't out of your grasp, and by working hard, you might be able to reach them. But is it the same for the deadlift? Let's take a look. And as you can see from this, a much broader bell curve with some really high weights at the top end. And again, these are probably powerlifters or people with strength backgrounds. And then on the bottom end, maybe people that are very bothered about keeping their form and training within their comfort zone. In the middle, that broad range, you see that the average between 70 and 150, or you could narrow that down to 80 and 140. That average there, it is broad. So it shows that actually mountain bikers, they have a good range of ability on the deadlift and strength. But let's take a look at that against the pros. And the deadlift with enduro and downhill being at 160 average, they're the same. It may well reflect the most important strength movement that maybe if you focus on only increasing your deadlift, that might be the key thing to improve your performance on the bike. However, we don't have all of the data to suggest that yet, but from the graph, it is that the deadlift is higher, pros versus amateurs, than the other movements, and it is relatively high against general population. So the pros there at 160, it's a reflection on their overall strength. It was no surprise it was going to be high, but higher than the squat and press versus other people. So what have we learned from these tests today? Well, you might have learned that you might not be that far off some of the average Joes or even some of the pros. And hopefully that influences you to spend some time improving yourself in the gym to then help on the bike. What it doesn't show is that all the other attributes that go into being a better rider, like the dynamic efforts and agility, cardio, power, and ultimately how you are on the bike, which is the most important thing for most of us. So don't neglect bike time if it's going to help you, but do include some of this if you have the time and capacity to. It will absolutely help your riding. And if you need help with that, Fit for Racing has you covered. Visit the website, drop me an email, and I'll take it from there. Peace.